Welcome to the Organisational Inclusionist. I'm your host, Grace Mosuro. In this podcast series, we'll be delving deep into the pressing issues surrounding equality, diversity, and inclusion in both the workplace and the broader world. My goal is to foster understanding, inspire change, and amplify the voices of those advocating for a more inclusive and equitable society. Throughout this series, I'll be engaging in candid discussions with leaders, experts, activists, and changemakers from various fields. We'll explore the challenges, successes, and evolving landscapes of equality, diversity, and inclusion. From dismantling systematic biases to promoting equal opportunities for all, we'll touch on a broad range of topics. But we won't stop at discussing problems. We'll actively seek out solutions and actionable steps to drive positive change. Our aim is to inspire and empower you, our listeners, to take an active role in making the world a better place for everyone. This is the Organisational Inclusionist. Let's get started. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Organisational Inclusionist. Today I am joined by the wonderful Jacqueline Hinds. Jacqueline is a multi-award winning certified emotional intelligence coach, consultant and master trainer. I never do intros justice. So Jacqueline, I want to hand over to you to get you to introduce yourself to our listeners, but also before you do that, just say a massive thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Grace. You are so welcome. And thank you for inviting me. Yes, my name is Jacqueline A Hinds. I am an emotional intelligence coach, leadership consultant, and master trainer for the EISAP 2.0, which is another emotional intelligence product as well. Yes, multi-award winning. So I do a lot of women's ministry stuff. I do a Woman of Faith program. So everything that I do in my corporate life or in my consultancy role, all the challenges and the landscapes that we have to navigate, I translated that into a faith-based program. So women of all faiths, the challenges that you face in the work, you face them within, the church environment and along your faith-based journeys. So, what better way to actually share the load and across different arenas. So yes, I've had awards for, inspirational woman and such like. So yeah, it's been a journey. It's brilliant, and I love what I do.
Amazing. So we connected on LinkedIn a few months back and we
hmm
spoke, and I was just really inspired by your journey, but also the many hats that you wear, because you're doing so much to progress inclusion in various different spaces. And I just felt it was really important just to shine a spotlight on you and the amazing work that you're doing.
Oh,
I
thank you.
think it would be amazing if you could kind of talk our listeners through what you are doing. So, what are the different projects you're involved in, and what really led you to where you are today?
Right, yes, as Grace, this is a tall order. Yes, I do wear many hats, but in everything that I do, whatever industry arena or project that I'm working on, what is woven throughout that is my model of the multilateral approach to emotional intelligence. So it's in everything that we do. So whether I'm doing an anti-racism masterclass or I'm doing a leadership program or coaching initiative, emotional intelligence is at the heart of everything that I do. And it's a way of getting others to really experience what their emotions are and get to understand other people's emotions as well. And I came to the table in 2016 and I got licensed, but I realized that I'd been doing it for most of my life, because as a human resource development specialist and trainer, I did stress management, conflict resolution, all of those kind of things, change management as well, where people's emotions are peaked for different things that trigger them. So I'd been doing emotion intelligence and practicing it before I even knew the word and the concept, the practices and principles around it. And, my interest has been sort of peaked to a point where I needed to get myself licensed, but also I found there were gaps in organizations and the work that was being done across the landscape, not only for EDI, but for inclusion per se, where when individuals talk about inclusivity, it's about what's your definition, and then this is the reality, and this is the landscape that individuals have to navigate. A lot of the work that I do is bespoke, so I need to find out what's keeping my clients awake at night. The challenges. I don't want them to say, oh, we need you to come in and do XYZ. I need to lift up the duvet and see what's underneath it, and then we can start looking at ways in which we support the workforce across their various levels in the organization. So I've been doing that over a period of time, and it's got to the point where I am the founder of the Society of Emotional Intelligence International, UK and Europe. And through the society, I provide my own EQ certification program where individuals get a chance to look at the ESAP model, which is different to the EQI, which is what I'm certified in. The ESAP model is a four segment model that helps people to understand self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And once you understand the practices and principles of that, whether you're in the working environment, home, or in social settings, you can gain to understand how you can use this knowledge and information in a meaningful way to progress. So,
Amazing.
that's me in a nutshell, basically.
Amazing. Why is emotional intelligence important then, Jacqueline?
Well, you know something, like I said, emotional intelligence is in everything that we do. When you think about when you wake up in the morning, you think, right, okay, what am I going to eat? And you may have a dilemma about, right, I'm going for a meeting and I've got some outfits. Your emotions are peaked because you try on an outfit, you think, right, it looks good. Got some, oh, I put on a bit of weight. So your emotions are driving you in a lot of the decisions, most of the decisions that you make. And when you think about your head and your heart, now, Grace, I'm going to say this: as women, we go out, we see, we see certain things, shoes, handbag, dress. Okay, we're going for shopping, but we just happen to see, maybe some shoes, a handbag, or a dress, and we think, oh, brilliant, that's so fantastic, I want to get it. Your head will say, no, you come here for shopping, but your heart will be saying, oh, but it would be so nice, I could wear it to this function. And then your head says to your heart, listen, you've come out to buy the weekly shop. If you buy this, you're going to have to put some other things back. So there's only 14 inches that separate them, but that is where the most conflict arises. So when you think about your head and your heart, when somebody speaks from the heart and they wear their heart on their sleeve, they're not being soft or anything like that. That is their emotions, you know, and you feel things that happen around you more so than other people because you pick up that energy. So you can be emotional about something, but you can still be intact because you understand it from your perspective. And it may not be happening to you, but you can sort of like gain understanding by walking in the individual's shoes so that you can support them better because you're understanding through the emotions. If that happened to me, how would I feel? Okay, you're hurting. What can I do to support you? I can't take your journey for you, but I can support you and keep you company along the way. So, with emotional intelligence, as it is with cultural intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and emotional resilience, that's where the model came from, the multilateral that I formed. And it was through the pandemic. And it works. They work seamlessly together, but they work separately in their own right as well. So, that in a nutshell, again, that's emotional intelligence, but it gives you a snapshot of why it is important and how you can utilize it.
Amazing. In the work that I do, when I'm working with organizations to help them create inclusive cultures, one of the things that we talk a lot about is emotional intelligence when it comes to engaging with different cultures and people from different diverse groups, but also
Hmm.
emotional intelligence when it comes to being open to hearing other people's stories. What
Yeah.
role do you feel that emotional intelligence plays in inclusion work that people like me and you do?
I think by understanding what is going on within the organization, that will give you an insight into what some of the challenges are happening within the workforce, but also it's about understanding the needs and the response to that from the various levels. So you could be called in to support a client in an organization, but you need to understand who you're dealing with, what the challenges are, what the levels are in the organization, and how you're going to engage them, with, what mediums you're going to do so. And it could be coaching, it could be briefings, it could be group exercises, workshops. You need to have an understanding of what the organization wants to get out of it and how they want their workforce upskilled. But for me, I have to look at the top first, because if you are working with emotionally intelligent leaders, they will understand what their workforce need to get the best out of them, right? So if you're emotionally intelligent and you understand the practices and principles about the landscapes that we all have to navigate, especially in the working environment, then you can bring somebody in to say, look, this is what's happening. This is what I want at the outset. And then you signpost the right people to work with to ensure that the work that you do, is, not a one trick pony. They can see the return on their investment, but also you work with all the individuals across the organization, not just the selected few. Because what will happen is you'll have a spotlight of brilliant work and the rest of them are in darkness because it's carrying on as normal. So
Mm,
you help to, change and move the organization toward their vision, values, and goals.
amazing. We talk a lot about the role of empathy in inclusion work and needing to have empathy. So being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes to a certain
Mm.
extent. But what kind of connection do you see empathy and emotional intelligence having? Can you be emotionally intelligent without empathy, or are they intertwined in some way?
Well, the work that I do, because you've got people that are emotionally intelligent and they don't use it when it comes to certain things.
Mm,
There's quite a few situations you think this person's emotionally intelligent, but they're not using it because it serves a purpose for them. So they kind of like lock that element of themselves off. So with emotional intelligence, you have to be in tune with your emotions. You really do. You cannot be emotionally intelligent and lack empathy.
mm,
And the only way that you're going to really find out where you are on your EQ spectrum is to get sort of a licensed person to do an EQ assessment with you, give you the feedback, and if you've got any gaps, because there's no right or wrong, there's just a you where you are now. And
mm,
certain situations, individuals may feel, oh right, I've got it all sorted, but what's inside you comes out in your report. And the work that I do when I work with individuals, I will sort of like find out, tell me what's keeping you awake at night. Tell me some of your challenges. But I will have their report in front of me and it will say they're low on empathy. And I may not judge them until I start speaking to them and then give them the feedback and say, look, you're low on empathy here. And I'll give you an example. I did some EQ leadership coaching as part of a program for faith leaders. And there was a female pastor. I got her report. I sent her copy. I had the coach's report. And when we had the one-to-one feedback, her empathy was low. And you sort of think, well, you're a pastor, you've got your flock. How can you be low in empathy? But when we got talking, she kind of explained. I said, how did you feel when you got your report? She said, yeah, no, it's really good. She goes, I did note the low in empathy. And I said, well, tell me your understanding. She said, well, as a minister, I have the ministry leads, I have the flock that I have to feed. And she said, when I speak to the ministry leads, I expect them to do the work that they're assigned to do. And she said, it gets to a point where they keep coming back. So she says, the lack of empathy is not me not being empathetic. It's like, I've told you 3 times, I can't give you any more. Go out and do what I've told you to do. So for me, as the coach, I understand, from her perspective. So it's what's going on inside that comes out. And then the feedback that you give them and the coaching that takes place after that is to fill the gaps and level out the spectrum. Because, like, it's not only empathy, it's decision making, stress tolerance. So with the EQI, you have a model, the report is quite comprehensive, but you take away the digestive chunks and you work on the elements that are lacking that you want to build, and that's where the coaching comes into it. So in terms of sort of working with individuals, if they are emotionally intelligent, they will be susceptible and receptive to the coaching to build their profile.
What are some of the challenges that you've faced? Because I think emotional intelligence is one of those ones where it's good to be able to say you have it. We all know emotional intelligence is a good thing.
Mm,
What have been maybe some of the challenges you've experienced working with people that actually think they've got really high levels of emotional intelligence, but that's not necessarily evident in their reports or interactions they have with colleagues, etc.? Like, how do you deal with that?
yeah, well, it's really difficult to speak to somebody and say, look, I know you've got emotional intelligence, because they say, oh yeah, 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 I've done that.
Mm,
For me, I will say it's what you do with what you know. That's what makes the difference. The
mm,
proof is in the action. So if somebody says, oh, yes, I did emotional intelligence, it's like, yeah. And how have you manifested that in your workforce, your direct reports, the work that you're doing, the challenges that you are taking them through, and what's the end result? What's the result of that? You
mm,
know, it could be that your staff turnover is astronomical. So, if you're, emotionally intelligent, EI savvy, why is there such a high turnover? Why are they running to the hills and other organizations? So really and truly, it's about leaders being honest with themselves. And what you want for yourself, you have to want for your workforce as well.
absolutely.
And you don't have to be sort of at the forefront. For me, servant leadership is rolling up your sleeves and supporting your workforce to see the bigger picture. And, you know, if need be at the back, because you don't have to be at the front. You be at the back for the people that are kind of like worried, not sure, just to reassure them and walk with them and show them, look, I'm walking with you. I'm not just giving you the edict and then you go out and have to do it. I'm
Mm,
here every step of the way. So an emotionally intelligent leader is someone who, as a leader, doesn't have to wear that neon sign or that badge to say leader.
mm,
It's how they treat their staff, how they include them, how they motivate them, empower them to be better versions of themselves today than they were yesterday, giving them opportunities to actually grow and develop into potential leaders of the future, you know?
absolutely. I love that. So, Jacqueline, obviously, you've been doing the work you do for a while now. What keeps you doing it? Like, what is the drive? What gets you up every morning?
Oh my days, what kids, people. People are my passion. And for me, it's about getting them to see the bigger picture for themselves. I use a lot of analogies. I'm a storyteller. So when I'm working with individuals, whether it's a workshop, whether it's a certificated program, or even coaching, I will feed them. So the analogy is, you've got somebody who feels disempowered, and then you start feeding them. You see them as the caterpillar and you feed them the little grass leaves and that, and keep feeding them and you keep encouraging them and telling them, look, you're doing a great job. Oh, that's fantastic. So you motivate them to sort of like, oh, right, I'm doing a good job. Let me do something else.
Mm,
And whilst they're feeding, and if you think about the caterpillar, they get sleepy and they think, oh, you know something, I need to rest. So while they're building their cocoon, you go, yeah, I'm still going to feed you. I'm still going to motivate you and speak to you and say, yes, take your rest. Don't worry about it. I'm here when you come out. So
Yeah.
when they are ready to come out of their cocoon, after all the support that you've given them, you're encouraging them. So if you think about a cocoon and a butterfly, if you cut the cocoon, you will kill the butterfly. The
Mm.
butterfly has to struggle to get out. And whilst they're struggling and they get out, you say, right, okay, come stand next to me. Let's view the landscape. And that is a way of getting them to let the blood flow to their wings. And once, and then they practice a lot of the things that you've shared with them, supported them with. Once their wings are dry, they're ready to fly, and you
Amazing.
wish
I
them
love
all the
that.
best. You wish them all the best to go forward, you know. And if they come back, it's really to build on what you've actually supported them with, not to go over what you've already done.
I love that. Got this like tagline for you, like creating butterflies or something, like nurturing caterpillars into butterflies. I don't
Oh,
know.
absolutely,
I love that for
absolutely.
you.
My tagline is helping individuals to realize, to sort of like unlock, realize their potential, to
Mhm.
be, the best versions of themselves.
I love it. So obviously, I saw you in February at the Ethnicity Pay Gap Summit, which
Mm,
you hosted one of the panel discussions, but you're
yeah.
also quite heavily involved in that, aren't you? Can you
Yeah.
talk us through kind of your involvement in that?
Well, Diane Grayson, my business partner, she's the founder of the Ethnicity Pay Gap campaign. And from its outset, she was always passionate. She's just as passionate as I am about EQ. She's passionate about the ethnicity pay gap. And I remember so many years ago, she was talking about it, and it got her wound up to the point where she wanted to do something about it. So I'm not involved in the campaign per se, like on the board or anything, but I'm part of Synergised, and Synergised Solutions do actually advocate for the ethnicity pay gap campaign, but also we're the consulting arm of Spectral, who do the data reporting, and they were at the summit as well. So Synergized Solutions are the consulting arm for Spectral, but then Diane's also a non-exec director on their board as well. So that's my involvement through the Synergize route, to
Amazing,
support the actual initiative. Yeah.
amazing. And in terms of that event, like I have got I'm going to speak to Diane separately, but
Hmm.
I absolutely was blown away by that event. Like I suffer from brain fog, so my attention span is not great for long meetings. And I was worried, particularly after lunch, like once I've eaten, I'm dead to the world.
Yeah.
That event was so amazing that I was literally like wide awake, alert, engaged, and excited from start to finish. Like, I don't know what you guys put in the food, I don't know what magic you had floating around, but it was absolutely amazing. Like, and for anyone listening, wondering what the Ethnicity Pay Gap Summit is, we're hoping it's going to become an annual thing. So keep an eye out and definitely turn up. But it was such a great event, and your panel discussion was brilliant as well. So just thank you for being part of that, because
Oh,
we
thank you.
need change makers like you and Diane in this space continuing to do this work, and we aspire to be a fraction of what you have and the impact that you've had in this space so far.
Oh, thank you so much. I It was the first of its kind, and it was kind of like a deal breaker, because when you think of the summit and you think of what was packed into that day and the key individuals on the panels, the presentations, I mean, people were putting their hands up to ask questions, and we had to cut it short because everybody wanted to ask questions.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic initiative. And, I understand with the graveyard shift, but we were alert all the way through. I did not stop until I got home, took off my shoes, and then flaked out. So for me, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was like that wake up call that everyone needed to have, because when you think about the ethnicity pay gap, it's not only from when you start work. You know, we as people of color, you know, especially a black woman near retirement, you see it in the pension pay gap as well, because what you don't get on an equitable basis throughout your working career, you see the result at the end when you get your pension pot, and you
Mm,
think, wow. So there's other inequalities that reverberate down the line. So it's that awareness and people engaged in that, organizations being transparent and consistent. You know, equity is there for all, not for some. So it's about raising the bar and getting organizations to really do the right thing.
absolutely. So I always like to end these sessions with a bit of a call to action.
Hmm.
So what would your call to action be for any leaders listening and wanting to create more inclusive, emotionally intelligent teams? Like, what would your call to action be?
I think my call to action for organizations and for leaders, you know, what you want for yourself, you should want for your workforce as well. You can't expect to bring somebody in, wave a magic wand, and your staff be emotionally intelligent if you're not receptive yourself. To
Mm,
be a servant leader, you need to do it as well. So, my call to action is leaders, if you want to change the dynamic, the culture, and the way forward so that your organization are progressive, get somebody and work with them who knows what they're doing. Help shape you as a leader so that then you can disseminate and move your workforce forward together to to actually champion the change that you want to see happening.
amazing. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining me today. I think emotional intelligence has been around for a long time, but whether
Mm.
or not people are really on board with it and really kind of accepting the need for it, I think there's still a question mark. So the work that you're doing is so important and so impactful. So just thank you for being in this space and doing all the work that you do. But thank you so much for joining me as well. I
Oh, you're
thoroughly enjoyed
most
having you.
welcome, Grace, and thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure.
This podcast is brought to you by Acquaintance Consulting. We'd love it if you could take a minute at the end of this podcast to follow, subscribe, whichever is easier or available for you on the platform that you're listening to us on. We're really keen to grow this channel and really impact equality, diversity, and inclusion across the world. And with your support, we can do just that.